customer experience wisdom, a dash of travel talk, we've been cleared for takeoff.
The best meals are served outside and require a passport.
Welcome back, CX Passport listeners. We get another new country today. Today's guest, Jon Deragon, joins us from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, who is our first guest based there. Jon is head of design at FPT, who is the sponsor for today's episode. Thank you, FPT, for supporting CX Passport. Jon's journey has taken him through Canada, Australia, Indonesia, and now Vietnam. He's built teams, led research, and shaped experiences in mobile apps, IoT, enterprise platforms, and is now taking on AI application design. What ties it all together is his belief that deep user research and engaging design that has soul are what move products from okay to meaningful. I'm especially curious about how Jon leads a design organization of over 140 designers towards clarity and impact. How do you balance all scale, speed, technology, and making something people actually enjoy using, especially when AI and cutting-edge interfaces enter the picture? Jon, welcome to CX Passport.
Rick, thanks for having me on the show. Much appreciated. Nice to talk with you.
Yeah, it is great to talk with you. Let's start with topic du jour, right? It's on everybody's mind, of course, and continues to stay on everybody's mind. Start with AI. When someone says, quote, designing for an AI product, what does that actually look like in your world?
Yeah, it's amazing, Rick, because I think if we had this interview each month, my answer to it would be a bit different, because that's how quickly all the changes are happening. It's unbelievable. But that's what's so cool about it. What's really a friend of mine right now is around human AI interaction, because I think a lot of the discussion that's happening out there is largely technical, right? We're really kind of grappling with the complexities of it and the compute and tokens and all of these things. But, you know, in my mind, I look at this and say, we have all these established like patterns and layouts and behaviors and things that we expect of the products that we use, like the digital products, our mobile apps, our websites, all of these things. We're accustomed to them working a certain way. But, you know, we're kind of stepping into the future of the unknown, right? So that's much more kind of the unfamiliar. We're going to start seeing patterns and behaviors and interactions we just haven't seen before, which I think has to be designed carefully and intuitively, and it needs to have a sense of guidance to it, giving the user a sense of confidence that they're doing the right things, like the things that they're about to click on or do or interact is correct, and it's leading them to the intended purpose, right? And when you throw into that all of this multimodal input stuff, we're all accustomed to keyboard, mouse, and touch screens. Add to that video and photos and audio and sensors and all of these other things that can all be put into the AI at the same time and in combination. This is really powerful what this does. I mean, it just totally changes how you interact with these products.
I'm glad you brought up that multimodal, because I was just reading, and I'm not making this up, just reading something this morning that talked about an effective way to prompt, because a lot of times when we're prompting, our fingers are maybe slowing us up because we don't type as fast as we think. So so there's one mode of input, but it's more effective to read the input than to have it talk back to you. But as humans, we're finding it kind of odd to do voice, then read, and that method. The fact that you're bringing that in, how are you kind of guiding from a design perspective users to not only be comfortable in a world where it feels out of sync, but actually recognize it might be more effective for you to play in this multimodal space?
Yeah, isn't that cool? So this is really our job, is to say, here are all the things that are available to you. Here's why you'd want to use them and the advantages of each and how you may want to use them in combination. And why would you choose one over another? So and I think we can start to see that unfolding now. You know, when I go into GPT and I have an issue, I natively start to take pictures of things and say, hey, tell me something about this, you know, instruct me on what to do. I'm asking it, well, draw diagrams of that. Show me in illustrations what you mean. And it just comes back and shows that to me. That's the path that we're going on. That's fascinating. So it's a matter of the interface having the right affordance to say all of these things are available to you. And at what given times, or maybe in the context of the conversation, which ones are most suitable to use.
I had mentioned that I was reading something. Well, it's a daily newsletter that I get about AI. And just like what I was reading, there's something changing meaningfully in the world of AI all the time. Well,
Yep.
if you're responsible for that, how on earth do you and your team keep up with all of this, especially given that pace of change?
But we're kind of in those pioneering days, right? And everyone's kind of feeling their way through this together, which is kind of reassuring. I know there's everybody on LinkedIn that's supposedly experts now, but I can still safely say we're all feeling our way through it, and that's kind of reassuring. And I think I've tried to form my own perspective and my own position on AI and a pool of knowledge that has been gathered from sort of a broad range of sources and perspectives, looking at it in layers. And the first is like the technical layer, which is like, the technology, the terminology, the how does it work and what does it do of AI, right? After that, we kind of have another layer, which is like, what are the advancements of that technology? How is it progressing? What's new on a literally a week to week basis? I understand the things that are kind of coming into the picture as they come along. How do I apply this? What's the application of this technology into the design of the applications? How does it change the experience, the functionality, all of these things? Lastly, and probably the most exciting part of it is like its impacts. So it's not just an impact of like this immediate product that's in front of you that you're designing or developing or what have you. It's like societal impacts, like larger commercial impacts and markets and industries and countries, humanity. it's like, and when you start to stretch your, when you start stretching your mind of like really big picture, for me, it was like solve fusion power. Get the quantum computer stuff sorted out, life longevity, material sciences. This is stuff that is truly will change our world.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport. Leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
So the other part, Rick, is really around the sort of a multi-pronged approach to the sources of getting this information. And one of those was conferences. Last year, I had the privilege of going to Design Up, which was in Bangalore. And there was a gentleman that did a talk called Josh Clark. And he started to talk about basically sentient design. And his keynote was pivotal in my own kind of learning journey about AI and completely shifting how I thought about what AI's impact would be on interface design. It completely changed it in a 45-minute presentation. I was a new man walking out of that auditorium. So Josh Clark is actually going to publish a book called Sentient Design, and it's going to come out in 2026. And there was another book I've started reading called Reshuffle. It's Sanjit Paul Chowdhury's book, and it's about how the whole knowledge economy is in shuffle mode. I first learned about Sanjit through Substack. The amount of kind of very interesting different angles and perspectives on AI and Substack articles have really been quite amazing. So that's a good source. The other is just YouTube. Matt Wolf and Tim in Theoretically Media. Every week, they're kind of doing these updates. Here's exactly the latest things that these technologies are capable of doing. When you're watching these, you really keep on top of what is the capabilities at this exact moment, and they're relatively entertaining to watch. I've found LinkedIn, all the thought leaders in the space, like Rory Flynn or Drew Brucker, they're just so generous with their posts, sharing everything that they've learned. Podcasts, as you know, right?
I'm biased towards
when
that
you're
one.
just starting, when AI for humans is not only like informative, but it's just damn funny. But on the other end of that spectrum, Rick, one of the most fascinating ones I listened to is called Moonshots, and that's Peter Diamandis. And it's this very optimistic view about what the implications are. What is AI going to do to change our world? One of the best things to do is just ask AI about AI. Ask it about how to interact with it, how to do different things. And actually, its responses are very good.
You almost, as we're talking about that, it almost takes me back to our multimodal conversation, that there's just this wide variety of ways to engage. I want to take a little bit of a shift here. And there's a phrase that is often said in customer experience, and it says, often everyone is responsible for the customer. Well, I've started to hear a similar phrasing around design. Like everyone should have design literacy. Yeah. Even the way people used to say everyone should know how to code. Well, what's your take on that? Everyone should design. Everyone's the customer. Everyone should learn how to code.
Yeah, and Rick, we kind of go through waves of this, don't we? It started with everybody needs to be a developer and everybody's responsible for the customer. Now everyone needs to be a designer. So I think, yes, we are responsible for the customer. All of us, no exceptions. Nobody can kind of hide in the corner and say, well, that doesn't apply to me. That I truly believe. When you start to talk though about designers, there's an element of truth to this, but we really have to be careful about it. The big difference is you can say, look, the people throughout the organization should have a bit of design literacy, the basic understanding of design in the context of digital products. I think that's a good thing, right? And maybe it doesn't take much to kind of get people up to that level so that they can contribute into discussions and understand what designers are talking about when they meet with them. It's a good thing. The difference, though, is what if its intent really is design work? That's a very different proposition, right? The expectation is that you're contributing usable design into a product carries a very different weight to it. When it was the coding thing, everybody should be a coder, and that included designers, right? When the expectation started to extend into, well, when designers design, shouldn't they just do the code that they're designing? And that's where it started to get really tricky. I went the total other way with my team. I basically said, look, you guys have no responsibility for code. We've got thousands of people that are incredibly qualified and live and breathe code. And so why should we be fumbling through this as like an add-on to a career that we've invested countless hours of our life into, built the expertise, did the learning, the training, all of these things? Why don't we focus on that? And so that's really what we've kept true to. We do kind of need to know the limits and capabilities of the technologies that we're designing for. If we're designing for something that's a very technical application, absolutely we should know what is the coding capable of doing. We have to have an appreciation of all of the functionality that's required to pull off some sort of an interaction or a design feature that we're building, so that we can sort of gauge, is this going to be a lot of work for someone that has to actually develop it? And is it feasible? I think we're also responsible for having a good relationship with those developers. That is very important as well. I think, when you look at everybody should be a designer, Rick, I've seen my fair share of like horrifying PowerPoint slide decks, right? I've really, really quite heinous, right? And the thing is that I respect and appreciate the work that went into them. And it probably was a total pain in the ass for them to do it. However, it didn't translate into a viable output. They expected to be designers. And I think not.
John, absolutely love that answer about design. As someone who's been guilty of some poor PowerPoint slides, I can totally appreciate the value of a great designer, well beyond just simply crafting PowerPoint slides. I've been around some amazing ones in the physical space and the digital space, so 1000% agree with you there. Hey, it's time for us to take a little break here. Join me here in the First Class Lounge. We'll move quickly here and have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location from your past?
You know, amazingly enough, a long time ago, that would have been Vietnam. But
cool.
Amazingly, you end up living where you dream to be. And I just find it a powerful realization that, yeah, that was Vietnam at a point. And here I am years and years later calling this home is just so incredible. It's really,
That's
I feel very
awesome.
fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've, Rick, I've watched enough of your show to realize that my actual answer to your question is not going to score me any originality points. That's for sure. It's Japan. There's something about it that really speaks to me. Even still, after many trips, it still feels like I'm kind of taking a shuttle to another planet. And there's just something about Tokyo where I just get swallowed up in this city. There's something I love about that experience, and it's just the culture, the electronics, the cars, the gaming, all of these things that really resonate with me. It's just it really is amazing as a destination. It's funny because I do a little bit of gaming, and there's this series I play which is called Like a Dragon. And so it's kind of like a realistic simulation of a fictitious Japanese city that you walk around in. It's 3-dimensional. And every time I play this, it's just calling me back to Japan. It must be some kind of a Trojan horse put out into the world, beckoning people back to Japan.
John, that is absolutely spectacular. I love that it is bringing you back into a world that you weren't expecting. Well, what about a world you haven't been to yet? What's a dream travel location that you've not been to yet?
Yeah, can you believe I still haven't been to London? And I think it's kind of getting time that I go in and do all of the kind of museums and galleries and cultural stuff and sit at an English pub and have a beer and just all of these things. To me, I think that would be kind of one of the next on the list for sure. Yeah. It's funny is I watched this food delivery guy on YouTube. I think he's called like London Eats or something like that. It's the most ridiculous thing to watch. And he's taking his moped, winding through the streets of London, just doing deliveries and talking about various aspects of his life. And I'm looking at the streets and going, there's parts of this I want to walk through. I want to see firsthand and be in it and see it and witness it. Yeah, London.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. Well, you mentioned food. What's a favorite thing of yours to eat?
I'm a huge coffee guy, like all in on single origin. I have a very perfecting my brewing workflow and my ratios, all of this. Like it's a big ordeal. I'm making regular trips to the indie coffee roasting places, all of that. I guess that doesn't answer your question, but I think, chocolate pairs very well with that. So I have to say, good chocolate and some coffee mixes together pretty well. Yeah.
That would. I could see how that would mix together very well, mixed it myself. So I appreciate that. Chocolate is something a kid loves. Coffee is not something a kid loves. What is something you were forced to eat growing up, but you hated as a kid?
Oh man, whenever I saw onions on the plate, that was it. The whole meal's over. It's like, just shut down the whole thing. I was tapping out. Yeah. Luckily later, you realize that's not so bad after all.
I'm kind of with you. Onions weren't they weren't my least favorite, but only later in life did I realize the glory of a grilled onion. And so I was a little late to the party on that one as well. So I can appreciate that. John, it's time for us to leave the First Class Lounge. What is one travel item, not including your phone and not including your passport, of course, that you will not leave home without?
Oh, wow. I've gotten recently sucked into this whole retro chic Casio watch phenomenon. And so, so my faithful companion on trips now is the retro digital Casio watches. It's this like faithful companion.
John, I love the vision of an old school watch like you're describing. Now, do you go all the way in the one that has the little tiny calculator on it? Remember
No,
those?
but I do have a Casio Royale, which is, it's a take on the James Bond movie, right? And so it's a 1200
man.
series, and it's basically a digital replica of what was in the movie, and it was made back in the 80s, and they still make them. There's something oddly attractive. It's so ugly, it's beautiful.
Hey, look, you're talking to a guy that drives a 2001 Chevy Silverado pickup. So I feel the same way about what you're talking about there. Let's get back into design. Let's get back into UX. I had mentioned that large organization that you have there at FPT. And you've given us some little dribs and drabs of how you have set it up. But I'm curious, how did you decide to structure and design this organization, 140 plus people, so it would actually work for the kind of research and design that you want to see, that creates not the meh output, but the actual meaningful output that we've been talking about?
About 5.5 years ago, I came on board and we did a design team centralization. We brought in the designers that were across the organization and brought them into a single team. And so with that, we built a design competency unit. And with this, it gave us the ability to kind of set all the conditions for design success, scale it up, and basically now it looks after all of the design requirements for all the global branches, all the customers, the business units, all of the sort of internal needs for design. Does that beautifully. It came because there's like such a diversity of the things that we need to deal with as designers. So if you think of all the breadth of like all the customers that we work with, from all the countries, all the industries, the types of customers, all the different form factors. We have design for mobile, desktop, spatial computing, 3D, automotive design. We have an entire automotive design team just working on infotainment systems and heads-up displays and clusters and all of that.
Yeah.
When you have that kind of a mix, and also throwing into it that we come into the product lifecycle at any stage. It feels really good when we can all kind of stick together and kind of just have the value of being there for each other and kind of bouncing ideas off each other, learning from each other, and just having that as the steady state. That's kind of like the bedrock. I think if it's dispersed and designers are kind of everywhere, I think it's kind of hard to tackle that level of like, constant change and variance in what you have to deal with. But if you're all together, I think it helps a lot. And so, those conditions for design success are having design leadership, someone that's vouching for you, that's an advocate for design and for the end user, understands design, understands how to get designers through their career path and help them grow, know what the right toolkit is, define the right processes.
Yeah, and that idea of bringing it all together, especially because that question that we talked about at the very beginning of how do you absorb all that individual information that's coming in at such a rapid pace? Well, I can see how centralization really can help with that too, because then the collective can absorb it from different inputs and then share it with themselves, as opposed to these disparate teams that are out there. We'd also talked about something else. And that was before we went in the first class lounge, there was hey, look, designers are really good at designing, coders can be really good at coding, and you can leverage those strengths. Well, when you do that, you also have the need to find a way to work together. So you've got these designers that are working alongside tens of thousands of coders that you described. There are worlds in which that could absolutely be a mismatch or a battle. How do you and FPT really make that combination work, ultimately for the benefit of that end customer?
Yeah, I noted the word battle. It's
it can be. I didn't say there.
Yeah, and you know what? It becomes a battle when it's not approached right. Yeah, it can become a battle. But when we're here to help the organization, we have a mission where we have to improve the overall design maturity of the organization. So if you're a centralized design team, that should be part of your mission, is to foster the relationships with account managers, product owners, project managers, developers, all the specialists, the business analysts, is to build those relationships. So it's not a battle. And when you think particularly about the developers, there's this very intertwined relationship. We both have that same end game. Let's make a good product. We have to have that amazing relationship. It cannot be adversarial. And it's actually very easy for it to be adversarial. The problem that I see, and every time I've talked to a lot of designers, they struggle with this part of kind of the workflow of doing design is, often they'll kind of lob the UI over the fence to the developers at the end of the design cycle and say, here you go, guys, whip up a great app. That becomes adversarial. That becomes a problem. And the reasons being is that they just weren't involved. They didn't participate in that process to appreciate it. How did it get to that stage? They didn't have a voice. They didn't have a way of communicating their concerns or maybe technical complications that the design creates. And they don't know the background or the decision making or the research that went into all the details of that design. So what that means is that if they don't understand how it got to that stage and they don't appreciate how it got to that stage, what happens is the temptation to save time and effort, which is their KPIs, and they're going to swap out all of these things that you so carefully labored over and crafted to make this amazing optimal experience with an off-the-shelf library or module or something that's close enough.
Right.
And completely fair to do that, because they've been just dropped this, and they're going to do the best that they can with all of the time pressures and complications that they have to deal with in their job. So once they start coming along for the ride, and there's a regular cadence of communications, that there's some transparency there, there's a back and forth, there's prototypes that are interactive, have annotations, are well described about all the non-visual behaviors and validations, all of these things that, they're not mind readers. They need someone to spell all of this out very carefully about what happens when, and all of the little nuances that can't be described easily just through looking at a UI. When you give them the respect of showing them all of this, doing QA sessions, presenting them with walkthroughs of these designs, fielding questions, all of that during the graduated design process, man, the relationship is like a heck of a lot better, and the outcome is a lot more polished. It's a lot more consistent. It just feels much more refined, right? And so that's the game changer right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said a word, and I mean, you may have seen it. I started grinning immediately because you hit on the word that I think is the one we should end here. And it's that idea of respect. And if you respect the team that you're working with, the other team, if you want to even use that word, then you will put in whatever the annotations on all the elements that you're describing. And the same is true in reverse. If you respect the designer, then you'll understand that there was a thought process behind it. So building that culture of respect, I hear that loud and clear in the theme coming through. Jon, you've really shared a lot of interesting information with me. We've kind of been in different places, the AI, how does design and code work together? We've learned about chocolate and coffee and onions. So it has been a really exciting conversation for me. If folks wanted to get to know a little bit more about you, your approach to design, your approach to customer experience, and to get to know a little bit more about FPT and the services it offers, what's the best way for folks to get to know more?
Sure. You can go to fptsoftware.com, or if you want to come and check out just what I'm up to, you can go to jonderagon.com.
Awesome. Both of those will get down there in the show notes. Jon, thanks again for talking with me here on CX Passport. I know the listeners have gained a ton out of it. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed getting to add another country to the CX Passport alumni board. Thank you for being a part of that. Jon, thank you for being on CX Passport.
Rick, thanks for having me. Great conversation.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. If you like today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. Click subscribe on the CX Passport YouTube channel or your favorite podcast app. Next, leave a comment below the video or a review in your favorite podcast app so others can find and enjoy CX Passport too. Then head over to cxpassport.com for show notes and resources that can help you create tangible business results by delivering great customer experience. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.